The holidays are ending now, and some people have put off divorcing until the new year. Attorney Robin Lally joins us now on what you need to be aware of if you are starting the process. With us today from Sedona Law. Happy New Year to you, first of all.
Happy New
Hope
Year.
You had a good holiday.
Yes, very good. How about you?
Very good. Not long enough. It never is, Robin. Okay, so we're talking about this. This is not where we're necessarily encouraging people to get a divorce, but January, I didn't know this till I was looking into this. January is the most popular month of the year to get divorces. Why is that?
I think people like to get through the holidays, especially if you have kids, just to have that fresh start in January, get through the hustle and bustle of the holidays, and kind of let that calm down before you make some big moves.
Okay, obviously there's only half a day left or 3/4 of a day left before we roll into 2020. If someone has been separated or they're about to start the process as we roll into a new year, where do you even start legally? What do you need to think about?
I think you need to think about finances. That's a big thing that comes up, especially with things like healthcare. Healthcare's cost is on the rise. We see every year health insurance costs increase, and that affects both your alimony and your child support. So when you're separating, that's definitely a big issue to consider.
And is that something when you go in, you kind of have to figure out maybe who's going to pay? Is someone going to kind of carry the bulk of the weight of the insurance if maybe one's employed and one's not? I mean, that affects a lot of moving forward.
Absolutely. From the child support context, a parent is ordered or obligated to cover their children on health insurance because it's a necessity. In the alimony arena, where it comes into play a lot of the time is once you're actually divorced and you're no longer husband and wife, the insurance carrier won't let you cover a former spouse. So that causes someone that maybe doesn't have health insurance available to them to have an increased cost of living that needs to be considered both from the paying spouse and the supporting spouse.
You mentioned, obviously, healthcare is just kind of one of the many finances you have to look at, and that is the biggest thing. Whether you're married or not, everyone seems to argue and maybe disagree on finances. What are some other major finances that you really need to clearly be thinking about even before you come to visit with an attorney?
Well, one of the biggest things I say in my consultations when we're talking about separating is it's not the same supporting two households the way it's supporting one household. And when we see like the decline of the dollar potentially continuing in 2020, what we need to look at is we already are stretching those dollars pretty thin to support two households. Now we're stretching them even thinner. So things like budgeting, financial planning, considering finding employment, changing employment, affordable health care, all of that comes into play. I
know usually owning a house is usually the biggest thing that a couple would split as far as an asset. What about the housing thinking of next year?
Well, I like to see this as a positive thing where we are right now. It's a seller's market. And so it gives, I think, couples another option. A lot of times we're fighting over who gets to keep the house, stay in the house, especially when there's no equity to be had. But when it's a seller's market and we can maximize our equity, we're seeing a lot of people choose to sell the house, walk away with those cash proceeds, be able to use the cash proceeds to make a down payment on another house that's maybe smaller to fit your new lifestyle, maybe pay off some debt, make some investments. And so when it's a seller's market, I think it's kind of a good thing in the divorce arena.
And the last point we want to talk about, especially if there are kids, is when you start looking at education and schools for kids can kind of be a sticky situation. Yeah,
it used to be, I think, that the default was you go to the public school where a parent lives, where you're zoned or District 4. But now that we have the expansion of magnet schools and charter schools that parents can apply for via a lottery, a lot of the old agreements and orders that we see were silent on the school issue. But now that we have more options, we really want to see our parents consider putting language in orders and in parenting agreements that sort of helps give them guidelines when you have more choices for schools.
There you go, Robin. There you go. Getting us educated. If this is something that you feel like that you need to do in the new year. And again, if you have kids from someone that has been through a divorce in years past, always put them first. That's really what it comes down to. So, Robin, thank you so much. And a Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.